We're ushering in today a month which is all about, well, it's hard work this month actually. There's a nice song that goes with it, but it's actually very demanding. משנכנס אדר מרבין בשמחה. Good luck with that. Simcha, real simcha, to be really internally joyful is hard work. So simcha has a lot to do with jumping and dancing and doing external acts. But the real goal of simcha is to be joyful inside. And it just hits us in the middle of the year, somewhere in the middle of the winter. And okay, now it's time to be happy. How do you get happy? What do I need to do in my life to flip the switch and be happy? Did you notice that happiness is hard work? Did you notice also that the happiest people in the world are children? And then when you grow older, something happens to this happiness. And somehow we lose it. So, do you ever wonder why Hashem made children? Like, He makes these helpless beings, and then He puts adults to raise them. Like, why don't you just make the person grow up right away and be able to help himself?
It gives them pain and makes them lovable so that we can want to give to them.
Right?
No.
That's because it's very difficult to wake up in the middle of the night with a child. But think about it. Elephants get up, and they pretty much walk right away. They can handle themselves. Mountain goats are able to hang out in those high mountains pretty much right away. There's not much skill, they just know it right away. Humans, helpless as you get. It looks like you're on a downer, and then you grow into something special. But when you know the reality of life, you know it's quite the opposite.
I think Adam was created as an adult, and he sinned and he messed up right away.
Right?
Perhaps God
Sounds like a mess up.
He wanted to give us a chance to grow into another bechira.
But maybe there's another way of looking at it. Maybe actually Hashem makes us perfect. And that's what children are. Perfect. And the goal of an adult is not to block that perfection. Maybe you want to learn from a child and actually respect the inherent and innate goodness and happiness and joy, life, just like simchat ha'chaim, just being alive, that children have. And if we as adults learn from those children, then maybe we could internalize a thing or two about them. Children don't have a worry in the world. The problem with children is that as a result, they're also very naive. And it's a lot easier to abuse a child than it is an adult because of that naivete. So imagine we could synthesize the two together. Imagine we could be adults and sophisticated. But you can't just ruin us because you feel like it, because we say, you've got a problem, not me. And we're actually able to have that maturity and sophistication to notice that the other person might have the problem and it's not me, like children think. But at the same time, maintain that naivete and just simplicity of a child and just inner, true, genuine happiness. Well, that's the month that we're being called upon today. Today begins Chodesh Adar. 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 Aleph. Dar. Aleph is Hashem. Hashem Echad. Aleph Dar means Hashem resides in you. When you get that, Mishenichnas Adar, when you allow the Aleph Dar Hashem into your life, Marbin Besimcha, you just increase the happiness. It will be beautiful. The problem is that there's us in the middle of it blocking the light. We block our own light. We don't allow the light of Hashem to be manifest through us. What we want to do as we get together in this class is to perhaps go deeper into ourselves and discover the child inside and be able to allow the child to surface, even as we maintain our maturity. To be able to work simcha into our lives, to work Hashem into our lives, because it's hard work. It doesn't just happen. There is a beautiful analogy brought in the Gemara in Tractate Saita. And the Gemara says as follows. Well, we have to go back first to the pasuk, the verse which says that the Jewish people are essentially planted in the ground. Uzrati ali ba'aretz. Hashem says, I planted you in the ground. When you take a seed, every time you want to grow a seed, you actually have to take a huge, ginormous risk. And that is, I'm holding an apple. I have to strip the apple of all its meat, all its appleness, and I have to discover that little seed. The seed, if you take a look at an apple seed, is just a black little thingy-majig. Nothing else there. It doesn't look like an apple, doesn't taste like an apple, you can't eat it. It's not interesting. But that thing, you got to take it and you got to bury it 6 foot under. You got to bury it underground. And he appears to be lost and gone and disappeared. Yeah, there in that ground, if you work the ground and you plow and you sow the seed in the ground and you water it and you work it, then from that ground, it's going to sprout forth a beautiful, amazing fruit. So the Jewish people have a neshama. Each one of us has a soul. The soul is beautiful. It's aligned with Hashem. But the soul was cast underground. It was stripped of all its connection, all its divine revelation, and it was just placed under the ground. That's where we are, underground. In this world, we are not privy. We don't even know. We're not even aware sometimes of God and of our souls. It's called being under the ground. And then the fruit grows. So the Gemara in Saita describes an analogy of the soul to the growth of a chita. Chita, wheat. A wheat kernel that grows. Notice how when a wheat kernel comes out of the ground, as it grows, something fascinating. Nature is really unreal. When you look and you say, as we said today in davening, Marabu ma'asecha Hashem, and you notice the incredible wonders of nature. It's just unbelievable how you don't even notice it, and Hashem makes everything function in its optimal state. Unreal. The wheat, when it grows, the kernel goes up, and on the kernel of wheat, you'll find what we call chaff. It's like white stuff. And that white stuff, actually, on top of the wheat, there's a crown. You ever seen? Kernel of wheat which grows. There's like this white stuff, the thingy-majig on the top. You blow it away, you blow it away. That white stuff, it crowns the wheat. Wheat needs that stuff to grow. And it's a paradox. Because that sasa, it's called. Motz. So the Gemara says, "Ume'atralei kesasa leshibolta." The sasa leshibolta is the motz, the chaff on top of the wheat. You cannot eat wheat if it has chaff on it. It's not usable. So what do you have to do? You have to strip it of the chaff. So if you have to strip it of the chaff, who needs the chaff in the first place? Wheat can't grow without chaff. What would happen to wheat if you didn't have chaff? Wheat, in order to grow, needs the natural elements. It has to have the sun. The sun is to shine beautifully on it. And that photosynthesis, that experience from the sun, warms up the wheat and allows him to grow. Wheat cannot grow without sunlight. You ever seen a plant away from the sunlight? It like shrivels away and you see how sad he gets. It's amazing. And you put the sunlight and suddenly the wheat, he's excited. You watch the plant, just life comes into him. You need sunlight to grow. You also need the opposite of sunlight, which is rain. If you don't have rain, if you don't have moisture, you don't have life. Rain gives you life. So the wheat needs the rain and needs the sun. What's the problem? The same rain and sun which give the wheat life also give death. They can destroy the wheat if not tempered correctly. Too much rain, too much moisture will cause irreparable damage. The wheat will rot away if it has too much moisture. Too much sun, it'll shrivel away. Won't survive. So to survive, the wheat needs rain, but not too much. Sun, but not too much. It's got to be tempered. So what do? You give it to him, but you have to withhold it from him. Enter the mutz, the chaff. What does the chaff do? It protects the wheat. It says, let me channel this. Let me absorb the sun and give you just the right amount that you need. And let me absorb the rain and give you just the amount that you need. It's actually an absolute wonder of nature, of how Hashem arranged nature. And then when the wheat grows, now the chaff is not edible. But there would never have been wheat if there was no chaff in the first place. So you need the chaff, but you're going to get rid of him. And so there's something in our lives. It says that a Talmid Chacham needs to have a shminit shebishminit ga'ava. Every Talmid Chacham needs to have 1/8 of 1/8, 1/64 of an ego. Don't have ego, can't survive. But if you do have ego, you can't survive either. So you got to have 1/64 of that ego, and it crowns you like sasa leshibolta, like the chaff crowns the wheat. That analogy is a powerful analogy in our lives. Think about it. We're placed down here in this world underground, and we want to grow out of this world, we want to go out of the ground into something special. Our souls enter this world not in order to get to the same place they were when they began. You don't invest $100,000 into a project to get back your $100,000. You want to get $200,000. You want to get $1 million. Hashem placed our souls in this world in order to accrue dividends. He wants to make money. He wants the soul to go places it never went before. He wants you to become something you weren't able to be before. What is that the soul can become in this world? It's an attachment to Hashem, dveikus, connection to God that you never knew possible before. So what happens to the soul? It descends into this world. Like the kernel of wheat, it starts growing. And as it grows, it needs rain and it needs the sun. Those are the things that happen to you in life. Sometimes it's too cold and too damp, and sometimes it's too hot. But all of them are meant to grow you. So notice how as you grow, what does it mean it gets too hot? Sometimes it just gets scary. You walk into a space and things happen and you don't know what you're going to do. So you know you have to go an extra space, but you get scared of what the next move should be. All the time, Hashem is guiding your way. But the way Hashem guides us underground is He doesn't reveal Himself to us. And so we're stuck thinking that we're on our own. And so we're pushing our way forward, and there's the elements that are affecting us. The elements are the things that happen to us all around. Think about it this way. Whatever happened to you in the past is Hashem. No mistake ever happened. Nothing. Even the things you did which were absolutely your fault were not really. Hashem wanted it to be that way. The future is always absolutely bright. It's going to be unbelievable. And the current moment is beautiful, dazzling, beautiful light. We say it every single day in our davening. Hashem Melech, Hashem Malach, Hashem Imloch Leolam Vayed. What does that mean? What's now is amazing. What was yesterday was God and amazing. And what's coming tomorrow is amazing. What was yesterday is amazing. because Hashem ran it. Wow, I was in Hashem's presence. What's now is amazing because what do you think it's coming from? Hashem is creating me now. And what's coming tomorrow is going to be unbelievable. But yesterday you said that what was bad was actually good. Yeah, but for tomorrow, Hashem gives me the right to think and to feel how amazing it's going to be. If you lived in that space of Hashem Melech, Hashem Malach, Hashem Imloch, Leolam Vaed, can you see how you'd be absolutely ecstatic all the time? What's the problem? What's even bothering you? What happens is, our souls get eroded at in this world. And we forget who we truly are. We forget that it is Hashem in our lives all the time. That's when our emunah, our bitachon, are challenged. Now, what are you meant to do? Well, you're meant to realize that the rain that falls on you is actually supposed to help you grow. And the sun that shines on you is meant to help you grow. We misinterpret them. We have names. Too much sunlight, you know what we call it? Too much heat. I think we call it anxiety. Too much moisture, too cold, something like depression, right? So you're sitting over there and you feel all alone and you feel abandoned, you're stressed out. So you get stressed and worried, and then you get down and you feel lonely and maybe depressed, right? What is that really? Hashem pulling you, calling you to a greater, deeper connection. He's like, I'm here. Just keep on saying Hashem Melech, Hashem Malach, Hashem Imloch. I'm with you. And you just notice that Hashem is with me. And you'll watch how it's just a feeling that's blocking you. That's all it is. It's just how you feel. Accept the feeling. And you'll discover Hashem is right there with you in that step. And sometimes you feel the opposite emotion. Because you've got to do something. You look in your bank account and you see it's not good. It's going down, down, down. And so I've got to do something. And then you get stressed out the opposite direction. And you get anxious. What's going to be? And you start jumping up. What it is? The sun is shining on you. Shining bright. Hashem is calling you to a space, a sacred space of feeling His presence. In life, all you got to do really is constantly and consistently work Hashem into your life. And you'll say, but I shouldn't go out and make money. I should just have bitachon and rely on Hashem. The answer is, yeah. Correct. What about doing stuff? Of course you need to do stuff. Just don't do it when you're feeling anxious and worried and depressed and sad and stressed, because it doesn't do anything. Or it's at least much, much harder to do things. What you want to do is constantly get yourself into a space of Aleph Da. Hashem is right here with me. Hashem Melech, Hashem Malach, Hashem Imloch. And you just move on. What we need is to crown ourselves with chaff. Every Jew needs to be a Talmid Chacham. A Talmid Chacham means, why is it not called a Chacham? Why is it a Talmid Chacham? It's a student of Hashem. It's to constantly realize how we're lacking and we need God in our lives. It's to work Hashem into our lives. It's to realize how we need Him. And as you do that, it's your work that constantly says, okay, I need to be in Hashem's presence. I need to feel all the time how I'm being taken care of like a little baby, and everything is actually absolutely fine and beautiful. That's called somehow getting chaff around you. There's the stuff you got to have around you, which is the chaff. You got to put it on you, grow with it, and then get rid of it. There's great tzaddikim, great holy righteous people, the likes of Reb Zusha of Anipoli. Heard of him? Reb Zusha of Anipoli was a student of the Mizritcha Magid. Mizritcha Magid was a successor of the Baal Shem Tov. And someone came to the Mizritcha Magid and he says, Rabbi, I don't understand. How do you handle suffering? What do you do? How do you handle suffering? And he says, go to Reb Zusha and ask him. So the Jew goes over to Reb Zusha, finds Reb Zusha, walks into his house, dilapidated shack. The house wasn't even standing properly. Like some kind of tin, structure over there, which did not have any protection from the elements, and it was Russian elements. Too hot, too cold, nothing was working. And he comes inside, and he sees so much suffering and so much pain. He looks at the children are not wearing proper clothing. There's no furniture. Everything looks ruined. And Reb Zusha looks like he's not healthy. And he says, Reb Zusha, the Maggid, the Rebbe, sent me over to you to see how a person handles suffering. And Reb Zusha says, I don't know why he sent you to me. I have no idea how to handle suffering. He looks at him, what do you mean? I've never suffered a day in my life. Oh, that's how you handle suffering. That means there's a point at which nothing phases you. You know who had that? We say it in our davening, in our prayers every morning. Avraham Avinu. Umatzata et levavo ne'eman lefanecha. It doesn't say libo. It says levavo. You found his heart faithful in front of you. But when we say libo, we mean his heart. Levavo is a double heart. When we say a double heart, we mean every one of us has two components to our heart. There's a left side and the right side. And that is our animalistic tendencies and our godly tendencies in our heart. Avraham Avinu was perfectly and absolutely aligned with the divine. Him and Hashem are one. That's why we continue. What are we saying there? There were 7 nations who dominated the land of Canaan. The 7 nations also dominate you, which is why we keep on repeating them in our lives today. What are your 7 nations? They are your 7 tough emotions. You have 7 of them. It's called kindness, love, gone wrong. You know what that's called? What's love gone wrong? When you love someone and you shouldn't. Well, it could be adultery. It could be addiction. It's that family. What's gvura? What's fear gone wrong? Anxiety. Fear gone right is awe. Awe is positive. Every one of the midot has a positive and a negative side to it. You want to adapt your emotions to be aligned with Hashem. When they're not, that's the 7 nations who dominate the land of Canaan. That's where you're supposed to be living. Avraham Avinu controlled every one of his emotions. He was absolutely, totally in control of himself. So we say in our davening, "Umatzata levavo ne'eman lefanecha," you found his heart to be absolutely aligned and faithful to you. And therefore, he had a pact and a covenant. He didn't ever suffer. He didn't ever struggle. He had absolutely no worries in his life because he was completely aligned. He said, Hashem melech, Hashem malach, Hashem imloch. He recognized God in his life and didn't have any problems. Good luck with that. We don't know what that means. We do struggle and we do suffer. Did you notice, someone once told me, he says, you know, that the biggest problem in your life is your heart and your emotions. How much of the time the things happen, and it's just very simple how to deal with it. Except that your heart doesn't allow you to feel it. And the heart makes it difficult. So the heart feels the opposite, and so inside you go crazy. And you struggle. Right? That's the difficulty. That's the challenge. How do we, normal guys, normal people that we are, how do we also find the beauty of our neshama, of our soul? Avraham Avinu is wonderful. It's great. Reb Zusha Vanipoli is great. He doesn't suffer. He doesn't feel the problem. But if you do, you know what you need? If you're not grown up yet, you didn't fully develop and blossom, you need chaff. The chaff will protect you from the rain, and from the heat. It'll protect you from the elements. What is the chaff in your life? You know, we lost recently a very special Jew. One of those giants. Reb Chaim Kanievsky was one of those people, very special. And it's interesting, like different stories that are told about him. You know, like when he's walking with a carriage, pushing his baby back in the day, and the wheel fell off. And he's sitting over there and doesn't know how to put the wheel back on. He's walking with his father, Stipler. And there's a little baby inside, and the wheel's off, and he's like there's like a button he's supposed to press. Remember those carriages? And he's supposed to put the button and he doesn't know how to. You know why? How does someone who can remember, how does someone who, his father was once worried that he wasn't learning enough, that he wasn't the depth of learning he didn't have. So it came Erev Pesach, and his father said, can you make a siyum? He said, sure, I'll get a siyum. You know, Erev Pesach, you want to make a siyum so that you shouldn't have to fast to finish a Masechta, a tractate. He's like, what are you making a siyum on? So he says, I'll make a siyum on Bavli and Yerushalmi. Meaning the whole thing. Not one Masechta, one tractate. On the whole Talmud Bavli and the whole Talmud Yerushalmi. That's impressive. So you don't know how to remember how to put on a wheel in a carriage. No, he didn't know, because he davened to Hashem that he shouldn't remember things he doesn't need to remember. He should only remember only remember Torah. Allow my mind to be focused on Torah, so I don't have anything else in my mind, no clutter. So the stipler went and put the button on and said, here's how you put it back on. So when he was a little child, just learned how to speak, maybe 2 years old, back in Vilna, there was a wedding celebration. And for some reason, there was no batchan. You know, you need to have a wedding means a batchan, you need someone to delight the crowd. There was no one there to delight the crowd. So the stipler asked his little son to just make, something cute. So he gets up there, little Chaimke gets up, and he starts reading through all the Masechtas, the names of all the tractates of the whole Shas. Most adults don't even know how to do that. And the Shalah Kadosh once said that repeating the name of the Masechta or the Parsha or the book is already in a way, as if you did it. It's got the completion, the totality in it. So he's reading the whole thing, and he gets to the last Masechta. But he's a little kid, he's 2 years old. So he goes in front of, it was in the home of Reb Chaim Oizer, Grozinski. And Reb Chaim Oizer was watching it happen. And he gets to the end of the Shas, the last Masechta is Uktzin. And he says, Uktzin, but he doesn't stop there. It was a song. He was singing a song to remember all the Masechtas. And he gets to the end, he says, Uktzin, give me a tzukreke, give me a candy. And the Chaim Oizer asks the stipler, he says, where did that Masechta come from? What tractate is that? And he says, I sing this to him every night. This is our bedtime, lullaby. There's all sorts of lullabies you could sing, Because we sing the Shas. I want him to get into the mode. And I realized that doesn't work. I'm learning with my son now. He's 6 years old. So we're learning together. We're learning how to lane. We decided to start young. So we're doing the parasha. So we already almost finished the parasha, first parasha. And what I noticed is that you need to put in, you put quarters into a machine, and then it works. Well, this machine also works on quarters. If I say to him, Tzvi, come, let's learn. He's like, I don't know. Then he starts, okay, let's learn, fine. He starts learning, and then okay, I can't, it's too much. So I said, hey, want one of these? He looks at me, he's first time, he says, no, what's that? So my wife gave him an explanation, X amount of these buys you such and such. And he put two together and understands, okay. So when I want it to work, what do? put a quarter in the machine. And it runs for a certain amount of time, and then you can see the energy just disappears. And you got to put another quarter in. And it's amazing how much it actually works. See, we humans have this beautiful tendency, which is that we need to be rewarded. And when we get rewarded, we feel good about ourselves. The reward, that quarter you put inside, is the key. The zuckerke. You need the candy. Give me something to make it worth my while. Guess what? When you become an adult, it doesn't go away. You just change the candy. Quarter doesn't work anymore. Candies don't work. But something else does. And here's what it is. It would be wondrous. It would be wonderful and beautiful if we could just say, you know what, Hashem, I get it. I get that I have a neshama. I get that I have a soul. I say, Hashem melech, Hashem malach, Hashem imloch. Beautiful. Me and God, we're feeling one. Whatever you do in the past is great. The future is going to be unbelievable. The present is great. All divine, all good, whatever happens. And whatever happens, you're just able to go right back to normal space. That would be wonderful if you were like Avraham Avinu or like Reb Zusha. But if you're not, then you need a candy.
Can I just comment, please? You keep on repeating Avraham Avinu, and absolutely he was the utmost tzaddik and Vayamen B'Hashem, V'Achshav V'Tzedakah, etc. But there was a point where Hashem said to him, Shema B'Kolah. Because Sarah, really the woman behind that man, was the powerhouse.
Very good.
She was the one who really carried the guilt and everything else.
Very true point. In fact, at that point in his life, it's a question whether Avraham had yet reached the Neiman Lefanecha. Because that point in his life, Avraham was holding before his bris. He hadn't, the Brit was when he was called Avram. And he was still, a father was removed. Avram. And he didn't control the 5 senses. And then he was given an extra hay after he had the bris. And then he was called Avraham. At that point, Avraham said, Lo Yishmael Yichye Lefanecha. He said, Hashem, I wish Ishmael, just make him okay. We Jews like to be liberal. Don't we? There was a beautiful piece just going around now. It's one of the Chavrei Knesset. You know, you might have some issues with him, but he still said well in this line. And he sat down there and he was asked a question. It was a clip of a lady in Boston. And clearly either Palestinian herself or pro-Palestinian, and she was asking him a question in English. She said, you're going to lose the support of all of us here because 3 Israelis were kidnapped a few years ago. And when 3 of your guys were kidnapped, you went and killed 2,300 Palestinians. And so, how, like, you want to take the numbers, is that in proportion? You got 3, and so you killed 2,300? So he looks at her, and it was a brilliant answer. He says there was a wise lady, her name was Golda. And Golda said that if the Arabs would drop their weapons, there will be peace. There will be no more war. If the Jews drop their weapons, there will be no more Israel. He says, listen here. We didn't kill 2,300 Palestinians. There were rockets being thrown at us. Every one of those rockets was designed to kill thousands. The fact that they didn't is because Hashem helps us, because we have, you know, we have this wonderful Patriot missile, and thank God there's a lot of miracles in between also. He says, just get this straight. This is the line. He says, if I have to choose between the life of one Israeli or you, I would rather 2,300 Palestinians. And I would rather you than even one Israeli. He didn't actually say, I'd rather you dead, by the way. He just said, I'd rather choose between you and them, but it was pretty clear what he meant. That's the kind of sense of self. It's like a bit of an arrogance, wouldn't you say? Yeah, you need some arrogance. And you're absolutely correct. Sarah had it. Abraham was like, come on, make it work for Ishmael, make him good. And ever since then, Jews don't know how to handle themselves. We're ready to...
Rivka had it also, by the way.
Yep.
Rivka, as opposed to Yitzchak.
Nachon. Very good. Yes. The Imahot had some tremendous power. Absolutely. Abraham later on reached the level of Matzat levavon eman lefanecha, but at that point there was actually an issue. And that's exactly what's needed here. What's needed is, see, we Jews like to say, why Jews liberal? Because we have souls, good hearts. So we're always like worried about what people think, and we're always worried to be, that we should be considered always upright and just and special, all that, And you don't realize that you're not helping anyone by doing that. You're actually just destroying yourself. And just start recognizing and start standing in your power. Jews can't say it. They don't know how to say it. The first Rashi in the Chumash tells us, it is our land. Why? Because Hashem gave it to us. Go away. What do we Jews say? Unreal. They fight us. Like, we occupied your land? You try to kill us. If someone tries to kill me and I occupy his land, am I the occupier? You're the aggressor, not me. As soon as the war's over, Moshe Dayan goes over to the Mufti and says, do you want the keys? So sorry that I won. My apologies for winning. You don't realize you didn't win. God won it for you. There is a certain power that we need to stand in our power. It's the chaff that's needed. What's the chaff? Chaff is stuff you're not supposed to keep it. It's gaiva. It's an ego, but a healthy ego. In your life, what it means is, talk to Hashem. Say, Hashem, listen, I'm not holding like Reb Zushavani party that I don't suffer. I do, I struggle. I really, really struggle. Every time something happens, I'm knocked on the ground. Every time there's rain, I get down, I get depressed. Every time there's heat, I feel the heat. It's really hard for me. It's really, 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 really difficult. I don't know how to handle this. What should I do, Hashem? Talk to God and tell God what you want from life. Say, Hashem, I need your help. And what I want in life, you know what everybody wants? What's the candy everybody wants when you're older? If I say to you, what do you want? What's the answer? Everyone has the same answer. What?
Peace.
Right.
Health.
Health?
Health.
Right.
בריאות, גיזום, פרנס הולכת.
Whatever you get that you need in order to make you something is what you say you want. Ask any 20-year-old if they want his health.
A car.
Exactly. You get a little older, you want the health.
They want physical.
Right. When you're younger,
They want materialistic when they're younger.
precisely. But you see how what we want is actually always the same. What we want is simcha. We want to be happy. What makes you happy? If you tell an 80-year-old, would you like to have $1 billion? It's like, well, what would be the point if I got $1 billion? You tell a 20-year-old, would you like $1 billion? He'll say, no, I want 2. It just depends on where you are. Everybody wants the same thing. There is chaff. The chaff is whatever you consider. It's the extra stuff. It's the stuff that's embarrassing to say that you actually want it. I mean, health is okay to want, right? But when you say, I want $1 billion, I don't feel right about saying that. It's squeamish to say it's my land. Go away. You don't feel right. You feel like, no, come on, be nice to the other person. There needs to be a healthy ego in our lives. It means when you want something, write it down. Try this out, right? Write it down on a piece of paper. What do you want? You want a shidduch? Write it down on a piece of paper. I want my child to get a shidduch. Hashem, I know you're giving it to me. I know it's there. Put it down on a piece of paper. You know what you do with a piece of paper? Put it in your drawer. Put it away. Don't look at it. You told Hashem what you want. Now just move in that direction. And Hashem has your back. And you're like, but how do I know? A little bit of ego. Come on. He loves you. He's your Father in heaven. You asked him for it. He's going to give it to you. And then stop worrying. It's accepting that which I ask Hashem for, He'll give me. Remember, we always say that it's not the thing that you ask for, because you don't know the thing. What you want is the feeling that comes with it, which is some form of happiness. Tell Hashem what you want, and then go into a space of peace, knowing that whatever you want, God has your back, giving it to you. You got it. I'm with you. And the second that you get that, what happens to you?
You say thank you.
You say thank you, Hashem. And then you realize that when you get knocked this way or knocked that way, it's okay. Do you know what makes wealthy people successful? Why some people are perpetually chasing after the dollar and other people just sit there. It's that when the market goes down, some people are down. Like, oh my gosh, I lost some money. What should I do? So when you go up, it's exciting. When you go down, you have anxiety. But you know the truth. It's a fact. There's going to be years that are good, and there's going to be years that are not so good. If you're in it for the long haul, it's all good. It's fine. Just don't lose it. You go up, you go down, you're going to make it, you're not. Big people who have more bandwidth, understand. Sometimes you're up, sometimes you're not. You're always in Hashem's hands. The more bitachon you have, the more confidence you have in the power of Hashem in your life, the more you realize you're always good. Hashem Melech, Hashem Malach, Hashem Imloch, Leolam Va'ed. I'm in God's presence all the time.
And your own ego is also balanced, because you're not like gava atzmit, but your gava is coming from like
Exactly.
spiritual thing.
Remember once way back when we discussed how there is in the Megillah is a story of you, and Achashverosh represents, each one of the characters represents something in your life. Achashverosh represents the king, that's Hashem. Haman represents the animal inside you. Mordechai represents your soul, your neshama. And what happens is, the Melech, Hashem, turns to Haman, and he says, Haman, I want to reward Mordechai. What should I do? I'm not going to tell you that I want to reward Mordechai, because then you won't tell me. But he says, if you want to reward someone, just saying, let's say you want to reward someone, whoever it is, who did you a favor, who you love and you care for, and you want to reward him, how should you reward him? And what's the answer? Haman's like, you mean me, right? I'll give you the right answer if you mean me. And he says, well, I really want to be the king, and I can't tell you that, but I want to be attached to the king. Give me the king's garments, the king's crown, the king's horse, and parade me through the streets and say, thus shall be done with a man who the king wishes to honor. You see what Haman's really saying? I want to be happy. Happy is this. That's what I want. And now the king says, okay, all that, go do it to Mordechai. Why didn't the king ask Mordechai in the first place? Mordechai, you saved my life. How can I reward you? You know why he didn't ask him? What would Mordechai answer if he asked him that question? What? Bearing in mind that Achashverosh didn't know that was part of the issue, right? Otherwise, it would have been pretty simple.
Give me Esther back.
What?
Give me Esther back. Give me Esther back.
Right, but again, Achashverosh doesn't know that he took Esther. He doesn't know. In Achashverosh's mind.
From his house, so he would say, I would like Esther. That's it.
The whole story was hidden. There was like no knowledge.
In Achashverosh's mind, clearly he didn't know all that. Clearly he didn't put two and two together at that point. What was he thinking? What would he ask Mordechai? He would say, Mordechai, you're an amazing person. I want to reward you. He knows Mordechai. He doesn't know what Mordechai wants.
So kill Haman.
But again, he doesn't know that Haman's trying to kill him. Otherwise, it'd be pretty obvious. Otherwise, you wouldn't have to ask Haman either. If you ask a Jew and you say to him, I want to give you a reward. I want to give you, you're a holy man, I want to give you everything. What would he say? I'm good, Your Majesty. I'm so happy I saved your life. It's okay.
That's Israel.
That's why, exactly, that's Israel.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's why he says, okay, I can't ask this guy. He's not going to give me the right answer. Forget it. So he summons Haman. He says, Haman is straight. I'll get exactly what I want. But don't tell Haman it's for Mordechai. So he's like, Haman, what do you want? Haman gives it straight like it is. And then what does he say? Okay, now, Achashverosh is actually quite brilliant. He says, now go do that to Mordechai. Now think about that in your life. You have a Mordechai and you have a Haman. Who's your Mordechai? That's like your sense of Reb Zusha Bani Poli, who says, everything's good, whatever Hashem does is good, it's amazing. Hashem is just Hashem Melech, Hashem Malach, Hashem Iloch, amazing. It's all good. Yesh li emunah, yesh li bitachon, I'm good, it's amazing. It's good. Whatever you do, Hashem is great. But there's a little Haman inside of us. And what does he want? He wants to be happy. He wants some money. He wants some power, health. Sometimes it's things you need, and sometimes it's things you're embarrassed to say you need. But he really wants them. And Achashverosh says, okay, I'm not talking to Mordechai. He's not going to tell me the truth. Tell me, my dear Haman, that's your Haman inside you. What do you want? That's the chaff. What do you want from Hashem? And it's unbelievable. When you tell God, when you talk to Him direct, you say, Hashem, here's what I want. You say, I want the shidduch. Or I want this happiness. And here's how I want to feel, Your Majesty. That's a very important part. Don't say what you want, because then you're going to be stuck on that thing that you want. You say to God, here's what I really want. I want this, this, and this, and this, so that I can feel. Fill in the blank. And you'll see at the end of the day, it's going to say happiness. And then you take that thing and you put it in the drawer and you leave it away. Because you know what Haman does afterwards? Haman comes from Amalek. You know what Amalek is? Amalek is the numerical value of Safek. Amalek has a tremendous power. The power of Safek, doubt. Amalek always puts doubt into your head. That's what we live with, doubt. How do I know you're with me, Hashem? I asked you for a shidduch. How do I know? Maybe it's the right one, maybe it's not, maybe it's maybe. How do I know you're with me? I don't know. I'm not sure. And when you're in doubt, you know what happens? The heat is too hot and the rain is too cold. Everything that happens to you knocks you down. You don't know how to handle it. What do we do with Haman in the Megillah? We hang him on the gallows. Every time you have a doubt, you say, Remember, it was just there to ask you one question. What do you want? You said what you want. That's the end of your role in the Megillah. Go off. Go away. Hang him on the gallows. You tell God what you want. You tell Hashem, Hashem, my ego really wants such and such. And every time you want something else, talk to Hashem and tell him what you want. I want this and I want to feel such and such. Now he knows what you want. And it's embarrassing to do that. It's the chaff on the wheat. But after you tell him, you know what happens? He comes back and he says, I want to be very famous on social media. That's embarrassing. Why do you want to be famous? Well, if I'll be famous, everyone will be talking about me, everyone will know me, and I'll feel happy, right? So then what do you do every time you post something? You go, look, how many people liked you? Right? Why are you looking? Because you're constantly doubting yourself. And then when it gets difficult, it's not happening, oh my gosh, you get anxious. That's depressed. And all those things just throw you out. And what you want is to stand in your power. It's like this. We're not holding on levavon eman lefanecha. We're not holding on that things don't bother us. So you talk to Hashem and you say, Hashem, I'm embarrassed to tell you this, but here's what I want. And you put it down in your drawer. You write it down once, and you put it down. And the next time something happens, you can write it down again. And you put it in your drawer, and you talk to God. You say, thank you, Hashem, I got it. I know you've got me. And then every time you start to doubt it, you throw the doubts out the window. And you realize Haman's job is finished. That's called, you need to have ego. It means confidence that Hashem is going to help you. Absolute confidence. He'll give you what you want. And then the rain makes you grow. And the heat is warm. Meaning when you get knocked in life and you feel like this is too much and you're anxious, you say, okay, I'm anxious. Go right to the space. Hashem is with me. Because you're not doubting it. You know He's with you. I don't need to find the shidduch. He's finding the shidduch. What am I doing? My job is not to get anxious, to feel His presence. And to keep on making calls. And whenever it gets sad and depressed, you're like, I'm feeling down. This is tough. It's raining on me. But I know you're with me. That's the chaff. When you grow older and you get there, you're like, take the chaff off. Okay, at this point, fine, Hashem, amazing. You watch these miracles transpire in your life, and you'll see the most unbelievable and amazing things happen. Because we're just here to be in this world, to grow.
Yeah.
And as you realize the sense of growth and power that Hashem gave you, you realize that you need a sense of arrogance, pride, a sense of direction. That's what it is. And have your Haman answer the question, what do you want? Tell God what you want. And then Haman parades Mordechai through the streets. And that means you get rid of that chaff. Put the chaff on. And you say, okay, I know Hashem is with me. Going in that direction. Rain and heat are designed for you. Every anxiety, every depression is not what you think it is. Just every time you have it, get centered right back on center. And say, that jab at me is just strengthening me to get closer to Hashem. If I can just get closer, it's going to work. I'll end up with a little story. Just before the last few weeks of his life, a guy came to Chaim Kanievsky and he told him that he wants to be he was offered by his nephew to be sandik at his son's bris, his great nephew. So, and he says, I can't take it because I'm not worthy, and I want to learn Torah. No, it's not me. I can't do it. So my own grandchildren or great grandchildren, I'm gonna go because I'm at the end of the day I'm my grandfather. I'm there, but this one I don't think I should go. But my mother really wants me to go. She says it's her great grandchild. She wants me to go. What should I do? So he says, Chaim told him, this is the last few weeks of his life. He says, I want to tell you, I once heard from the Chazon Ish that if a person is supposed to marry a Kohen, right? It says, if you marry the daughter of a Kohen and you're not a Talmid Chacham, the shidduch doesn't work well. So he says, so a guy came to the Chazon Ish once and he says, what should I do? I'm being offered a shidduch of a daughter of a Kohen. And I know I'm not a Talmid Chacham. Meaning, I learn a lot, but I'm not holding on the level of Talmid Chacham. So what should I do? Should I take it or not? His Chazon Ish looked at him and he says, my dear friend, you know what a Talmid Chacham is? Someone who thinks he's not a Talmid Chacham. If you think, who thinks he's not. If you think you are, then you're probably not. But if you think you're not, then you're the right guy to go marry her. He says, and that's the power. If you don't want to be the sandik, you're dafka the one who should be the sandik. You got to realize your power. The power you stand in. If you don't want, that itself is your power. Careful. The humility, you got to have a bit of a gaiva. What you think is humility, maybe is not. Maybe is your power. And that's the idea here. If we don't want to be knocked out by the forces around us, all these wacky forces, too hot, too cold, anxiety, worries, whatever, just stand in your power. Realize that Hashem is just with you. And if you're wondering why and you feel I'm not worthy, That's why you're worthy. That's exactly it.